Welcome, Karin Reed. Karin is an Emmy Award-winning journalist turned leadership and communications expert, four-time author, recognized thought leader in business communications. Her insights have been featured in all the magazines, but I think it's kind of interesting that McKinsey calls her the author who inspires us. Karin is also CEO of Speaker Dynamics, where she coaches companies from Lenovo to Eli Lilly. Karin, welcome to the pod.
Axel, Axel, Alex, delighted to meet you. And I think
I,
it's hilarious that I did that. As a communication coach, I do stress that authenticity is important. And that was my authentic self coming
I
through.
have
I got
I
to
have an
correct you
Axel
though.
moment. Yeah, yeah.
Axel,
This was Axel
Alex, I
speaking
have
because
to
it
say,
was yeah.
well, I do think that you called me an Emmy Award winner. It's Emmy Award
Emmy,
winner. So
Emmy.
I don't want to be an enemy award
All
winner.
right, I'm the enemy of the Emmys. Emmy, that's perfect. So that this was actually a great lead in, Karin. As we
Yes.
were getting ready to chat, we were saying, I'm going to read the intro that my team prepared so capably. And I'm going to mess it up and it's going to look like I'm reading it. And in this case, I read it wrongly.
Yeah,
And
right.
you're gonna give us a tip on how you could read something and look like you're not reading it.
Well,
So
it's funny because I responded wrong as well by calling you the wrong name. So I was just trying to make you feel better about it. But in all seriousness, so as you said, I'm a communication coach, and I've been doing this for quite a long time. My career was as a broadcast journalist. I work primarily for NBC, which is one
Mhm.
of the major news networks here in the United States where I'm based. And one of the things that I learned early in my career was something called analytical reading.
Okay.
And analytical reading is a way to mark your copy, to mark your script, so that you
Oh,
can sound more natural when you're reading, because nobody sounds like themselves when they read.
mm,
There's kind of a flattening of your vocal range. So rather than
yeah.
having the highs and the lows, you end up talking like this kind of
Flat.
narrow
It's
sort of
flatter.
space.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. You lose some of the
That was
expression.
Axel. That was Axel talking.
Axel, no, Axel was unfortunately that just came organically in some weird place for my brain. But I think what happens is you focus more on articulating words in a certain
Yeah.
order as opposed to thinking about the meaning behind the words. So the key is
Interesting.
trying to recapture that. So what analytical reading asks you to do is
Okay.
with that script that you have, Alex, you
Okay.
would look at each sentence and you would underline the meaning words, like the words that are most important in the sentence. Like if you didn't have them, then you wouldn't be able to make sense of what the message is. So do you want to do a quick trial?
Well,
Okay,
I
so
didn't underline it, but let me try this again.
what's the first one say? What's the first sentence?
Karen is an Emmy Award-winning journalist turned leadership communications expert.
Yeah. So of those words in that sentence, because you don't underline everything. So the new thing that would come to mind that you would want the audience to hear would be my name, right? And
Yeah.
typically it's not Karin Reed, it's usually Karin Reed. Like you
Right.
emphasize
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
second name, your last name. And then probably award winning, you'd underline
Yeah.
award winning, you'd
Right.
underline communication
Communications expert, right?
expert.
Yeah.
Yep. And so as
Four-time
you read
author.
it,
Yeah. Yeah.
yep. So you would punch those words. And then the second part of analytical reading, which is, and there's other aspects to it, is marking for pauses so that you
Mm,
force yourself to stop. Because so
mm,
often when we're reading, we just kind of blow through it, right? And everything kind of sounds the same. But there are certain points where in natural conversation, we do pause because we want to give our audience a chance to go, oh, okay, before you move on, or else it's lost. Like we can only take in so much at one time. So
right.
placing pauses is really critical. And, in my old news days, what I would do, I'd underline those meaning words and then
Yeah.
I would do like a strike, almost like
Yeah.
a slash at those places where I knew I needed to pause. It was, often at the end of a sentence, but sometimes in the middle of a sentence if I wanted something to kind of linger and land with impact.
So, Karen, given this, is it almost better off not to do the intro that's reading? Do a
Um,
bad in person intro. Karen is an amazing communications expert. McKinsey consultants wake up and get inspired by her. but
Well,
Karen, why don't you tell us about your story?
okay, I
Uh,
am happy to do so. And I
yeah,
would say like it depends on the format, right, Alex?
yeah,
Because like this is very informal. I have to cough. Speaking of informal, can I
yeah,
do
yeah.
that? Hold on a second. I'm gonna
Yes, that was a beautiful
There we
cough.
go. I
Well
love the
done.
mute
Very
button.
elegant,
Don't you
elegant.
wish that you had the
Yeah.
mute button in life? I mean, I think that'd be so much easier. But
I have three
I think it
children,
depends.
so I think I would overuse it a little bit at times.
So you have different environments that play to a certain style of communication. This is very
Mm-hmm.
informal.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be odd if you would be reading my official bio. I'm going to cough one more time. Hold on.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a pro would have a glass of water nearby. I'm obviously not a pro today because I don't have it with me. I already chugged it in an earlier
I, I'm
workshop
I'm
I
I'm
did today.
offering you, yeah, offering you
Yeah, a
one
virtual one. I wish that helped.
virtual.
So this is informal, so therefore I think going off script is probably better. It's just a matter of knowing what your key things that are that you want to mention. So like communication expert, McKinsey, author who inspires us, like those would be things that I probably want to have
Yeah,
percolating in my brain. And if I were doing a formal presentation though, like say that
right.
I had to introduce Tom Brokaw at the Naval War College, which was a terrifying moment because Tom Brokaw was, kind of one
They
of my
were gonna kill you.
heroes.
They were gonna kill you if you don't do it
Well,
right.
it was a very intimidating environment. You look out to a sea of uniforms, and
Mhm.
they're all high-ranking officials. And I was in the media at the time, and traditionally, the media and
Mm,
the military did not have a very good
mm,
relationship. So
mm,
I
mm,
was
mm.
already on my heels. And then I was introducing Tom
You
Brokaw, who
were
I
you were not the Emmy Award. You were the enemy.
right, I was the Emmy Award winner, probably. You're right. That's classic. So it was a scary moment. And the idea of me going up there though and just kind of winging it, introducing
Yeah,
Tom Brokaw, like that wasn't going to happen.
right.
So at that point, I needed to make sure that I could read it in a more scripted and formal fashion because it would fit the environment in which it was being done. Oh, okay. So go
So
ahead.
so lesson learned. Like this is actually really great for anybody else, right? Like I think sometimes, thanks to AI, or just we're a little bit insecure, about what we're about to say. We have a tendency. It's easy to have a script right now, right? You could just
Yeah.
ask for a script, and boom, right? Like this is the downside of the ease of technology, right? We're losing the authenticity, right? This is meant to be an authentic conversation. And
Yeah.
it's like I always feel slightly awkward actually when I'm doing the intros because I
Yeah.
don't over like sometimes I have time to prepare. Sometimes it's more like I love to meet this person.
Right.
Let's create like we're just meeting.
Yeah.
So I'm not like overly trying to be like overly prepared for like days on end. Like I run a company in addition to the podcast, right? So I don't want to overdo it, but I want to be respectful to the guest. But
Right.
it turns out that like with the best intentions and the ease of having a script, it may backfire.
Yeah.
And do you see other examples that are kind of a typical, quick win, right? This is a huge quick
Yeah.
win for this podcast. The guests that will come in the future will thank you for it. The audience
Yeah.
will thank you for it. What are the other things that well-intentioned schmucks like myself, get it wrong, right? When we're trying to get our message across.
Authenticity over perfection. That
Okay.
is the key element. And what that often means is prepare,
Okay.
but don't over prepare. So,
Okay.
one of the things that I often have to work hard on with my executives that I coach is to
Mm,
get away from the script because it
okay.
feels very comfortable and safe to
Yeah.
just operate off the script.
Yeah.
And oftentimes I'm working with like main stage speakers. I have a big conference coming up where I'm going to be backstage for this big tech company, and I'm going to be working with all the folks who are going to be going out and speaking to the thousands of people in the audience. Not something that they do very often, right?
So you're getting all
And
these big brain subject matter experts,
or
leaders, but they need
leaders
to,
of companies, and they have to
and
go
then they
out.
need to engage people who
Yeah.
normally are like looking at their phones, trying
Well,
to
and
do
they
other
can
things.
do
Yeah.
it, but I
Yeah.
mean, because the people who are at the conference are there because they have an interest in the company itself or in the industry.
Right.
But what I often find is that people want to look at what they
Mm.
call confidence monitors, which are
Okay.
um, almost like TVs that have, words in them, like the speaker notes, or they'll have the slides. and they're oftentimes placed at the edge of the stage. So what
Mm.
happens is you've got this huge stage and you've got all these people out in the audience and they're looking at the leader coming out. You can imagine they're excited. And where's the leader looking? Not out into the
He's like
excited
looking at
faces.
their
They're
like on that.
looking
Yeah, yeah,
down
yeah,
at the confidence monitors, and there is no connection
yeah,
between them and their audience. And that authenticity is sapped. And you lose them because they
yeah.
know they're reading, you know. So you have to get a certain level of comfort with just being able to tell the story in the
Mm,
words that come to you in the moment and
mm,
trust that you can communicate them. So that means you have to be prepared enough to know what that story is. And, you know, in some ways it's easier just to, you know, come out and read off a teleprompter or, you know, stick to the script that you were handed. But it's very difficult to make that sound genuine. And I do teach the different tricks with analytical reading to make that a bit easier, but still, no matter how good you are at reading off a
right.
script, you're always
Yeah.
going to sound more authentic if you are just speaking spontaneously.
So, what are the ways where you could get to do more spontaneous
Hmm.
communications
Hmm.
without a lot of prep work, right? Because
Yeah.
I think everybody is stretched for time.
Yep.
And so then the question becomes, all right, well, do I have a few prepared speeches and I just keep running through them, for different audiences, and that just sort of like becomes very familiar, very comfortable. I don't need to prep. I sounds like a lot of people are doing it because you keep hearing the same people say the same messages, but it's not that fun. Maybe it
Yeah.
doesn't work always.
Yeah.
Is there some other methods where people get really good at spontaneous storytelling?
Well, I think you have this kind of library, right,
Mm,
of
hmm,
stories and anecdotes that will fit into a certain topic.
hmm.
And I've worked with some keynote speakers who have this kind of revolving list of stories that they will plug in based upon that the audience cares about and that they're talking to. But the one of the things that I suggest, and this is like a very practical
Okay.
strategy,
Okay.
is get away from the speaker notes.
Okay.
Instead, use your slides to guide you. So
Okay.
have enough on the slide that it can serve as a reminder of what comes next. So I am a big fan of using animations and builds
Okay.
because I'm going to show one bullet, right? And it's not going to be a long bullet, but it's going to be like the key point that I want to express. And then I'm going to talk around it. I'm going to have, maybe an illustration of it happening, or I'll tell a story from, my past and, or how another client applied this. And then I'm going to click and then it's going to say, oh, and here's four more words. And this is going to trigger my memory that now I want to talk to you about this. If you stick with just using your slides as a way to
Mm,
guide you and drive you through your
mm,
presentation, you can't read because there's not
hmm.
enough there.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it gives you enough of a guide to keep you on track because it
Got
would
it.
be
So,
really scary. And this is different than like a Steve Jobs, presentation where he has like two words on the screen. And that is, some people can do that and it's genius. I find the majority of us need something else to hang our memory hook on. And we need some of those words to push us along. But I
when
find
Steve Jobs
that's how I do
notoriously
best.
prepared quite a lot for those
Yes.
presentations, right?
Yes.
And that was
And it
relatively
showed.
obsessed. It showed, right? And they
Yeah.
worked. And so I think we are all trying to kind of get a quick Steve Jobs in there, if we
Yeah.
could.
Yeah.
Um, a lot of what we talked about so far feels like it's more about in-person
Yeah.
presentations.
Yeah.
But
Or it can be virtual too.
but at
But
virtual, we see a few books on the behind the shelves there. Like,
shameless self-promotion,
yeah,
Alex.
I love
Yeah.
it. I love it. Two of the four. One of them is
Yes.
suddenly virtual, which I
Hmm.
understand you wrote around COVID. Like, was written, was it right as COVID hit?
I'll
Was
tell you
it?
the whole story because
Yeah,
this is
yeah. Tell
actually
us.
kind of crazy. So I was a broadcast journalist,
Yeah.
moved into coaching other people how to be better on-camera communicators after
Hmm.
I decided I'm leaving TV news.
Okay.
I need more control over my schedule and life,
Hmm. Okay.
and started being an on-camera spokesperson. And I saw this trend where they would bring more people in from the corner office or the corner
Uh-huh.
cubicle
Okay.
to be on camera alongside of me. And these people who never imagined that this would have to be a skill set were
Right,
expected to
right.
perform really well, and often they
They
did
needed to
not.
pull off a Karen without
Yeah, like
any
why
Karen
should they be able
training.
to do that?
Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's not fair. But there was one C-level executive who worked at this company where I was doing a lot of on-camera work for them, and she said, "Karen, I'm doing these videos. I hate how I'm coming across. Can
Mm,
you help me?" And I'm like, I don't know. Can I? Let me see if I can figure this out. And that's when I came up with my core of my curriculum, which is the MVPs of on-camera success, which is the
okay,
mental mindset, vocal
okay,
variety, and physical factors. So that was really the
okay,
beginning.
okay.
Mental mindset, vocal variety,
Vocal
physical
variety,
factors.
physical
Yeah,
factor.
yep,
Okay,
yep.
okay.
So not most valuable player, a minimum viable product. In
Yeah.
my world, it's something different. But that is really what started it. It was somebody who came to me with a pain point and
Yeah.
one that I think I could uniquely solve. What I was
Mm,
happy to find out is I could actually coach others to do what I did, which that's not
mm,
always the case. Like some people can
mm.
do but can't coach or can't put
Right.
it into terms that make
Okay.
sense, right?
Yeah.
But I loved it. I loved helping people to feel much more confident in that environment. But that quickly expanded to help people to speak with ease across any platform. So that was on
Mm,
camera, but it was also in person. It was also
right.
virtual
Right.
communication tools. So I started coaching people in 2010.
Wow.
And in 2020, I was asked to be a subject matter expert for a big video collaboration company. And another guy, Dr. Joe Allen, was a
Mm,
subject matter expert for them as well. And they wanted us to do a webinar together on the future
mm,
of meetings.
mm,
And this was the first week of 2020 in
mm.
March of 2020. And we said, well, in 5 to 10 years, there will be a bunch of virtual meetings and video will be at their core, right? You know the punchline on this. Well, all that happened in like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So we're like, this is something that perhaps we can help people to navigate better. So we ended up writing our first book, Suddenly Virtual,
Hmm.
to just give people some guidance because we
Yeah.
were both being inundated
Right.
with people just asking for some
Yeah.
help.
Yeah.
And we combined forces, wrote a book that did really well, and I think did help people to figure out how to do this better. And then on the heels of that, as things started opening up, people are like, okay, but what do you do about hybrid? Because
Yeah.
hybrid is really hard, and it is
Right.
hard.
Yeah.
But it can be so satisfying if you do it right.
Yeah.
So then we wrote
Yeah.
Suddenly Hybrid
Yeah.
together, and then based on the success of those two books, we were approached by the Dummies people
Yeah.
to write a book.
I called them and said, hey, I need help.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, so for
Tell me
you,
the
we wrote the
extra.
book Running
Yeah.
Effective Meetings for Dummies.
Yes. There you go. You got it.
But it's
You
been
got
a
it.
prolific collaboration. I adore Joe Allen, and
Yeah.
it's been wonderful to work with him. The funny thing is, I actually wrote all those books with him without ever meeting him in person. And we
Oh,
developed
wow.
this very close relationship as colleagues without ever seeing each other's legs. We were just from this up the whole time. And then when I did finally meet him in person, I screamed because I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing.
You're embodied.
Yes, exactly. You're like a full person. Like, yeah. And so that was really, really fun. But yeah, so odd kind of 10-year overnight success, right?
Right.
But
Right.
I think that we were able to kind of amplify what we had been doing and help a lot of people who are just like, I don't know how to get business done this way.
Yeah.
And
This way.
we were able to say these are some tips.
Well, this is still super relevant, right? So,
Yeah.
few years in from that 2020 period, what have we learned about virtual meetings?
Oh gosh, we've learned so much. First of all, my thinking on, camera off has changed a little
Okay.
bit. So initially, I'm like, all times you should have your camera on, no matter
Okay.
what.
Okay.
And then what happened was there was this meeting explosion
Okay.
where every single blessed hour of the day was just clogged with meetings. And so you had these poor people on camera for like 8 hours, 9 hours,
Right.
10 hours straight,
Right.
and they were exhausted. So Zoom
Right.
fatigue was a real thing. And then there was kind of an overcorrection where people were like, cameras off, cameras off. But Joe's science that he looked
Mm-hmm.
into based
Mm-hmm.
upon like the value of video and virtual
Mm-hmm.
indicated that you're really doing yourself a disservice because uh, you want to communicate across the richest medium possible
Right.
whenever it matters the most. So richest medium possible in person, face to face, right? Right below that is video with audio. And then a steep drop off is audio alone. And then you get into like text and emails, et cetera. But what I thought about was, okay, there's got to be some sort of, you know, in between where it's not camera on all the time or camera off all the time. And we came up with three different things to think about,
Mm,
whether you want to have your camera on or off. In your meeting, uh, what's the size of it? You know, if it's
mm.
huge and it's just people talking at you and there's no expectation of interaction, it is perfectly fine to have your camera off. Sometimes
Right.
it's a matter of saving bandwidth too. I work with a lot
Yeah.
of global companies, and they have thousands of people who are joining a meeting, and they're like, "Hey, please keep your cameras off. Normally, we like to see your faces, but it's really going to put us in a perilous position." So, and also it's a little bit more relaxing for the speaker too, rather than see. Like I remember I did this early on sales kickoff keynote, and everybody had their cameras on, but they also had the exact same virtual background. So, and it was like this industrial background, and it looked so weird because you had all these boxes with people sitting in the exact same position in this like industrial warehousey sort of thing. So it looked really strange, and it was a little distracting. So if it's a huge meeting, it's a one-way exchange of information. You're not expected to interact. Keep your camera off. You also have to think about your relationship with the people in the meeting.
Mm, mm.
So if you have worked with these people for years and you know that Alex rolls his eyes when he says something sarcastic, we don't need to see Alex rolling his eyes. We know he's going to do it because we have that bank of
Yeah.
nonverbal cues that we've acquired over the years.
Mm.
So it's not as imperative to have the camera on. But if there is a new person to your team, you want to have that
They
camera on
need
for
to
a while.
see they need to
Yeah,
see
they need to
the
make
other
those
person.
connections and be
Right.
able to create their own bank of nonverbals to associate with each member of the team. And then the third thing, which is probably the most important question to ask, is, what is the topic that you're going to be discussing? If it is emotionally hefty, if it is very complex, then you want to be able to communicate in the richest way possible.
Yeah.
And if you can't do face to face, video is second best.
So on that note, so how do we make video
Mm.
feel a little bit more like face to face? Like, see,
Mm.
I'm trying to move in here into the video. I don't know, but
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I think a lot of us are wondering, like, there's some communicators on YouTube in particular that they're just you could almost feel their energy
Yeah,
when they're speaking, and some, they're just a talking head, and
yeah,
they're kind of they communicate authority because their head is straight, but
yeah,
it
yeah,
kind of it slows down. Some people, I'm standing right now, right? And
yeah,
for me, that's energizing, but I don't know
yeah,
if that's distracting. So I think a
yeah,
lot of our
yeah,
audience are wondering, what are we doing when we're speaking like this? And then obviously then we're presenting slide where in our case, our customers are often presenting interactive
yeah.
presentations and sites, but it's still we're wondering, how do we come across? Is it better to be full screen? Is it better to be kind of a smaller screen and have the slides be featured? What have you found any patterns of what
Yes.
success looks like?
There's so many different aspects to this, and probably the most important thing to remember is being in the right mental mindset.
Okay, so let's go cover MVP. Should we do
We can do that. I
30
mean, there's a
30
lot
seconds
to
in
it,
MVP? Yeah, yeah,
but I will give you kind of like the headline. So the
yeah.
mental mindset uh, it starts with asking yourself this question: how many people am I talking to? So I will throw it out to you, Alex. Whenever you're in a virtual meeting, how many
Mm,
people do you feel like you're talking to? Do you feel like you're talking to no one? Do you feel like you're talking to an infinite number of people, one
mm,
person, or does it depend on how many people are in the meeting?
mm.
What do you think? Where's your headspace?
It varies by the meeting, obviously. But
Okay.
it's interesting
Not
right now. Yeah,
obviously. It's not obvious because actually what I would say is no matter how many people are on the call,
yeah.
it's always an audience of one because they're all receiving your message individually. And it's
Okay, so
because
great. So
conversation space is very,
right.
very small in this environment. So if
Okay.
you go into what I would call presenter mode, where you're projecting your voice and you're doing big gestures and you're not necessarily making good eye contact with the camera, it's going to look inappropriate. And at worst, it's going to look fake. So you have to recognize that, the way you frame yourself, which is how much of you can be seen on screen, is how you create distance between you and your conversation partner.
Interesting.
So right now, if you can imagine, like if we would translate this into an in-person situation, we would be maybe 4 feet apart, maybe even a little bit closer. Probably I'm going to say 4 feet. I think that's probably the
I took a
proximity
shower,
needed.
so I think you're
Okay,
safe. Yeah, you're like,
smell-o-vision. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. So with that in mind, like how would you be talking to somebody who is just a couple of feet away from you? You wouldn't be projecting your voice because that would feel
Right,
uncomfortable.
right,
You wouldn't be doing big gestures because then you'd be invading their personal space. So you stay
right.
in this kind of conversational space that's a little bit intimate
Hmm.
and a little bit less formal than if you were standing up in front of the room. And that's when you kind of get back to the whole idea of, how can you be as authentic as possible? If you would meet me in person,
Yeah,
I would be the exact same as I'm
right,
being right now. But
right.
the big difference here is that my energy
Yeah,
is being poured through the camera. That's where I'm directing it.
right.
And because the camera is the portal to my people. It's the
Okay,
only way to reach them.
okay.
So eye contact is huge in terms of
S-
engagement, but hard
s-
to manage.
So let's just gonna make it real. Am I like you've been observing me for, 20 minutes, 30
Yeah.
minutes?
Yeah.
Is my eye contact off right
It is
now?
right now. Yeah. Look at your camera now.
Yeah. So I need to be looking, and now?
So where you're looking at the camera,
No,
but tell me about your setup. Like
I
what
just
camera
have
are you?
I have a big MacBook Pro,
Okay.
and it
And are you
just I have
you
a top camera up top, so I don't have a
okay.
custom camera.
I'm actually doing the
Yeah.
exact same thing right now. So
Okay. Okay.
what I have my camera just sitting on top of my MacBook Pro, my big MacBook Pro, which I have all the ports in because I like my ports. So
So wait, so
that's why
you have a
I have
separate
an
video
external
camera,
webcam. Yep.
external webcam, and that
Sitting on top
way
of
it's versus the usual webcam that comes with
yes,
MacBook
yes.
Pro. And you
Because
would
very
recommend that
honestly,
setup because
well,
that's
I mean, it depends what works
yeah.
best for you. There are people who have multiple monitors and so they need to have it set up a little bit differently. If you have multiple monitors, I'm going to pretend like the
Let's
monitors
say I have
do.
one main
Okay, one main
monitor.
monitor, you just have the key is making sure that it is at eye level.
And
So
so right
sometimes
now
with
it's a little bit higher than
a
eye
little bit
level.
higher. So I
And
probably want to, are you using a standing desk?
I'm using a standing desk
So
and
yeah,
like
so
a
you'd
shade.
probably want to be able to draw a level line from your eyeballs to the camera and have it be parallel with the floor. And that is
Oh,
going to allow your
okay, got it.
conversation partner to feel like you are looking at them directly into the eyes.
So
A
this
lot of
whole
times,
time I'm kind of losing people because I'm kind of almost look a little bit like I'm looking down on them a
yeah,
little
I
bit.
mean, I'll do it for you. So
Yeah, yeah.
what's the difference between if I'm doing this, right,
Which is what I'm doing
versus
right now.
if I'm doing this?
Oh
And there
my
was a
God.
really interesting client project that I worked on. It was a bank, and they were um, having what they called virtual tellers.
Okay.
So you'd walk up to an ATM, and rather than seeing text on the screen, I love how you're adjusting this in real
We're
time.
gonna do this real time
That is
because
awesome.
I don't often get experts.
And then I'll correct
You
something else. But anyway,
yeah, okay.
so
All
so the
right.
virtual tellers were just not getting interaction because and they weren't quite sure why.
Okay.
But they were just not, like irrelevant to the customers who are walking up to the ATM.
Okay.
So what I noticed is that the virtual tellers were not looking at the camera. And so
Hmm.
that creates a disconnect, right, between you
Hmm.
and your conversation partner. So I'm like, let's do it this way. Look at the camera. See what
Hmm.
happens whenever people start looking at the camera and saying, "Hi, Mrs. Jones, how are you today?" And what they found was that suddenly there were interactions with the
Okay.
customers and the virtual
Okay.
tellers. Because they're like, "Whoa, okay, they're looking at me and they're
Okay.
talking to me."
Okay.
And it changed the level of engagement
Hmm.
dramatically and increased the satisfaction scores
Hmm.
of the customers dramatically.
So
So it makes a
how are
big
we doing right
difference.
now? Are you seeing the difference? Do I need more
Are you
raise
are
the
you looking at
camera
the
more?
camera? Don't look at yourself. Look at the camera.
I'm looking at the
Okay.
camera.
It's still a little high. So if you
So
draw,
or maybe it's the just
there
it's
you go. Yeah.
the
Yeah. Okay. So here's the other tip I'll give you. Call it the
okay.
3 finger test. Okay. Put your hand like
Okay.
this.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. I'm having him hold up his hand.
Okay.
Connect your pinky and your thumb.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Coordination. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, yeah,
Take your
that's
temperature. Here, flip your
that
hand around. There you go.
okay.
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 And then
Okay.
stack it on top of your head.
Okay.
That's how
Okay.
much, and you're okay. That's how much space. 3 fingers is how much space you want between the top of your head and the top of the frame. But I think for you, I kind of like the framing that you have. As long as you don't lean in and like cut off the top of your head, I think you're fine. So the reason
Okay.
why we do this
Okay.
is when you're talking to people face to face,
Yeah.
you're taking in their nonverbals from about this much space. And so you want to recreate that in a virtual platform so that they have the same benefit.
Okay. Wow. This
You're
is
like,
this is great. Like
oh.
few dozen episodes in, I'm discovering the basics. I'm really glad you've joined us, Karen.
Oh,
I
I'm
think I'm sure
delighted.
I'm sure like there's kind of like this is super practical because we probably spend what percentage of our days, yeah, I don't know, you probably have the latest statistics, but half of our days engaging
Yes.
through Zooms and Teams.
Yeah, yeah.
And what percentage of people get it right in your
I
experience?
don't have a number, but a lot get it wrong, and that's what's given me business for many,
Right,
many
right,
years.
right,
But what
right,
I will
right.
say is it's all about having presence in the room. I do a lot of work in executive presence. And one
Okay,
of the things that has always been a head scratcher for me is
okay.
folks who want to have strong executive presence, but they don't turn their camera on. I'm like, how can you own the room if you can't be seen in the room? You have
Yeah,
to have your camera on to establish that you are there. And then whenever you do have your camera on, maximize the space that you're granted.
right,
You know,
right,
oftentimes you will see people who are sitting low in the frame. Maybe their eyes are coming up to about a third of the way up the screen. And you're ceding all of this really important screen real
right,
estate
right.
to something that's irrelevant. So,
Yeah.
make yourself big on the screen, and that way you can have more presence in the room.
Okay. So lesson one, and then we've talked a little bit about the mental. So coming back to the mental
The mental
state,
mindset. Yes.
mental
Yeah. So
mindset.
remember, it's this conversation. It's a pretty small
Right.
conversation.
It's one on one.
And you are connecting with the people on the other side primarily through the camera lens, not staring at the camera like you're being held hostage,
Right, right,
because
right.
that looks unnatural. But you
Mm,
are being aware that this is creating space between you and your conversation partner based upon how you are framing yourself. So the second, vocal variety, and this actually is true for in person as well as virtual.
right.
You want to create some sort of variation that the ear can pick up what's important, because our brains are hardwired to pick up change in the environment.
Right.
If nothing changes, all your words will wash over them.
It's
So
like I have very exciting message for you to
exactly.
do.
So you
Yeah,
have
tell
three
you come
tools. You
down.
got
Yeah, yeah,
pitch, you
yeah,
have pace, and you have pauses that can
yeah,
create that variation. So pitch is like your vocal range,
yeah.
how high your voice goes, how low your voice goes.
Right.
And whenever you speak in a monotone and don't change your pitch whatsoever, all those words go in one ear and out the other,
Yeah,
because steady tone becomes white noise. So you
yeah.
need to figure out how to hit the highs and lows of your
Very, very
vocal
good.
range.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
So, we talked about underlining key meaning words.
Yeah.
That also can help you to generate additional variation in inflection in your
Okay.
voice, because when you
Okay.
look at those words that are underlined, you
Mm,
know, you're probably more likely to emphasize them. And when we emphasize, we often do change our pitch.
love it. I
Yeah.
loved it how you said when we emphasize, we often rather. I was like,
I try to
everybody will
model good
remember that.
behavior, Alex. Yeah.
Everybody will remember that.
Yeah, and then
All
there's
right.
there's other aspects to it. One of the key parts of it that I think is most important is pausing, and
Okay.
that is something that we often do not recognize the value of because it feels
Mm,
uncomfortable to us. Silence is hard
mm,
to sit in, especially when you're virtual, right? Because often you don't have that ambient noise to kind of fill in the space, especially if you're working from like a home office. And it's important to recognize it's valuable for you. It's valuable for your audience as well. It's valuable for you because oftentimes we need to just gather our thoughts, and we don't give ourselves time by sitting in the silence. Instead, we'll say, and it's a verbal placeholder. We know we have more to say. We just don't know how to say it yet.
right.
So people will end up using that or people start counting your filler words, and then they don't listen to your message. So
Right.
if you try to swallow it and substitute silence instead, then you can give them an opportunity to really consider what you're saying because they need time to digest your information.
So what's a
Think
quick tip for somebody who's like me, says like and
couple
all that
things. All
stuff,
right. So
right?
the first thing I would suggest if you're doing a virtual presentation or a virtual meeting, if you have a favorite filler word, do you have a favorite filler word that
Well,
you
you
use a
probably
lot?
picked one up. What have you seen?
I haven't actually, I really didn't pick up on
Okay.
specific ones. Yeah, I'd have to go back and look at the transcript, which I will tell you is horrifying because you realize how many filler words you say. And I think it's an improper judge of how you
Right.
sound because the goal is
Hmm.
not to eliminate all filler words. The goal is to reduce the ones that matter the most, that stick out the most. Those would be the ones between thoughts, the ones between sections of a presentation, for example. On this slide, we're going to talk about
Yeah,
those are the
yeah.
ones I would want to get rid of. But my favorite filler word is so.
So,
And so
yeah,
what I
yeah,
do is I have
yeah.
this on a sticky note. I put it on my monitor. And when you look at it, it can often take the place of verbalizing it. It's like you register it in your brain, but then you don't say it. And half of it,
Ooh,
yeah. So figure out like what's your favorite filler word, put it on a sticky note on your monitor, and it'll help you to reduce it. Also, what helps to reduce it is simply being aware because
right,
self-awareness facilitates
right,
change.
right,
And
right,
when you start thinking about it, then you can take some action to reduce it. But it's so important for your audience to have
right.
that time just to think about what you said. Because think about like a comedian who would tell a joke, deliver a punchline, and then instead of giving space for the audience to laugh, would just plow into the next joke. What
Right.
happens to the
Because I have
impact
a
of that
lot of more
punchline?
good material. I
Right,
want to
right,
share it
right. But
all.
then it's like it smushes together. It
Yeah,
smushes together.
yeah,
So
yeah.
you want people to be able to appreciate what you said.
Right.
So when you're thinking about, delivering a presentation, for example, or even if you're just in a meeting and say that you're meeting with a customer and you want them to really consider something of value, if it like a key takeaway, like this is why we are head and shoulders above our competition.
Mm,
Let it sit there and almost think about your conversation partner doing what you just did, going, uh-huh, I see.
mm.
You want them to have time to think about that.
Because that you want basically it needs to be their idea. It can't be your idea.
Well,
And so if you're
that
filling in
too,
this, right?
right?
Okay.
But they have to digest it. And if you
Yeah.
just throw a bunch of information at them, it muddies the message.
Okay. And then the last piece.
P, which is physical factors. The question I always get,
Okay.
whether it's in person or virtual, is what do I do with my hands? And
Right.
my answer is
Yeah.
always the same. If you're thinking about what your hands are doing, you're
You're
thinking
already
about the
lost.
wrong thing.
You're already
Focus
lost.
on the message, right? Because
Yeah,
if
yeah,
you
yeah.
if you focus on what you're saying, your body is going to support it organically. You don't
Right.
talk to people about what you had for dinner last night by
Yeah.
saying, well, for my entree, I had chicken. Now I'm going to move my right hand. And for
Yeah.
dessert, I had a chocolate torte. Now I'm going to move my left hand.
Yeah.
Doesn't happen. Your body just does its own thing, provided that you focus on the message. So
Right.
make sure that you allow freedom of movement because we communicate not just with our words, not just with our tone of
Right.
voice, we communicate with our whole bodies. And if
Mm-hmm.
you try to muzzle any aspect of that, then it's going to make you overall less authentic and less effective as a communicator.
Hmm. So if we roll back to the MVP,
Yeah.
so this mindset, this is something that's near and dear to my heart, and yet I
Hmm.
got it wrong. And it's basically because they said, well, I depends on the audience, but in reality, you're right. Like so, imagine like I want to have a one-on-one connection,
Hmm.
one-on-one interaction was was my audience, was every member,
Yeah.
and I think this is where we are really on the same journey for a lot of our
Mm.
audience that are in the Relayto universe. This is the reason we started the platform is we wanted to have a more conversational experience,
Yeah.
even in digital content. Obviously, if you're
Sure.
presenting, you could sort of direct things, respond to things. But imagine you're not in the room and you could have maybe recordings of yourselves, but you still want to interact. You want the audience to have a one-on-one experience.
Right.
And I'm
Well, and
curious.
I mean, if you just go with like a PDF, it's very
Yeah,
prescriptive. You have
yeah.
one way to go through it. But
One
if you
way,
have
yeah,
a
yeah,
multimedia experience,
yeah,
then it is more of an opportunity to cater it to what
yeah,
your true interests
yeah.
are. And video has a great way of connecting.
Right.
And if you give it life
Yeah.
in this format, then people really can feel like they have a relationship with you and
Mm.
that they know you. When I worked in TV news, I would have people come up to me in the grocery store and
Yeah.
they'd say, Karin Reed, how are you? How are your kids? They talked to me like I was a close personal friend. When I was pregnant, they knitted me baby booties and blankets and stuff.
Mm.
Like it was kind of crazy, but I realized that they had developed a relationship with
Right.
me,
Hmm.
kind of one-sided, but it was a
Right. Right.
relationship that
Right.
felt
Right.
genuine to them. So
Right.
whenever you're thinking about your product, yeah, it's multimedia. And
Yeah.
it connects in a much deeper form than just text alone could.
So we're gonna bake in more of Karen's ideas into Relayto because it sounds like that's the foundational principle of what's your goal. Is your
Mhm.
goal to throw some information over the wall, right? Share some data, or is it to have a conversation? And
Yeah,
the everything is that what you've said is about how do we increase the likelihood of having one-on-one conversation where we're building trust, where which leads to another conversation.
yeah.
Is that sort of the foundational piece of where organizations oftentimes struggle, especially if they have technical complex information? They kind of get too obsessed on the information
Oh, yeah.
and
I mean,
not
I think
enough
they
on this.
present it from their own vantage point, right?
Right.
And that's one of the things I always instruct my clients to do is,
Mm,
don't tell them what you want to say, provide them what they need to hear,
yeah.
and that requires some analysis of your audience where you're figuring
Right.
out, okay, where are their areas of interest?
Yeah.
What do they care about?
Yeah.
But with something that is, multimedia, it gives them the agency to choose that path and to take the deeper dive where they want to. You're not just saying, hey, this is the only way I'm going to give you the
Right.
information.
Yeah.
And you need to take it all in the order in which it appears. Now, this gives them an opportunity to really dive in a way that would be more like a conversation. And even in a virtual setting, I always say the best virtual engagements are those that are interactive, not the monologues, me just
Right.
talking at you, but the dialogues. So I suggest delivering any information in digestible chunks
Yeah.
and then have conversations about it because it's key to making it a more satisfying experience for everyone.
Well, Karen, I think people have felt like they just had a one-on-one conversation with you because you're so
Good.
amazing. So if they want to continue this conversation, where can you find can we find you? Can
Yeah.
read your books, get your services? Tell us how we can get more of Karen's
The
communication
be
magic.
all end all is speakerdynamics.com, speakerdynamics.com. And that is your resource for all things Karin Reed and my team, which is also fabulous. So there you will
Hmm.
find access to the books, to the podcasts, to videos that are kind of like video tutorials. We have Speaker Dynamics University, which is our learning platform where you can take asynchronous classes that are multifaceted and grow as you learn. And you can record yourself on the platform, get some feedback. It's really a great tool. It also lists all the different modules of training that we deliver. And we cover a lot of ground. Our main areas are executive presence, powerful presentations, meetings that move the needle, and navigating the media interview. So those are like our four big buckets that we play in. But happy to have a conversation with anybody who finds their pain points in one of those buckets.
Beautiful. Karen, thank you so much for joining us. And you already helped me, so I'm sure if you could help that guy, that everybody can be rescued to become a better communicator. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. It was my pleasure.